is the Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position, stand your ground, and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Jake for the State podcast. And today my guest is Kim Kennedy. She is a rancher out in, central Oklahoma, and has some concerns along with so many others across the state of Oklahoma when it comes to the beef industry, when it comes to land and property rights, when it comes to renewable energy, the quote unquote renewable energy that we're seeing make its way across the state of Oklahoma. So we're going to dig into all of these topics of conversation. And first, I want to give a big shout out to Belter Roofing, a great partner and sponsor of the show, just providing quality roofs for people across the state of Oklahoma. And then, of course, Robyn Promotions, providing me with this amazing studio and helping you with all your promotional items. So go check them out as well at Robyn Promotions. Now to Kim Kennedy. Kim, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, thanks for your time. I know that all the things we're going to talk about today are near and dear to your heart because they're directly connected to your livelihood, to what you guys do in raising quality beef. And tell us a little bit of background on you guys, what you guys do.
We started our cattle operation about 14 or so years ago when our boys started showing cattle. Of course, my husband and I both grew up showing cattle and being in the beef industry. And we also not only raise show cattle, we raise cattle for butcher. We sell to local people around our area. We just try to provide good beef to others, protect our land, and improve the industry however we can.
Now, tell me a little bit more about that. How is the interest in the local cattle? Because this is something I'm all in favor of. We raise our own beef as well, and we buy local from local ranchers. But I'm curious, what does the market look like? How much is the interest for local beef?
We have more people asking for beef than we can provide.
Wow.
We have some other friends who also do it, so we send them their way to try to help each other out. But we can't raise enough for the people who are asking for it.
Now, what do you think is contributing to this growing interest in local beef?
Knowing what's in what you're eating. We know what we put in our beef, and we wouldn't sell anything to anyone that we wouldn't eat ourselves. And I think the trust factor of what's out there. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I mean, as we look at the rise of big beef, big food, and how so much beef, not only do we not know where it is coming from, but we know that so much of it is coming from out of country and being shipped in. So there's lots of questions, like you said, about what it is that we're eating. And so I think as awareness grows and concern grows about what we're eating, then we're going to see a rise in interest in local farmers' produce and beef and other meats as well. But I think it's fabulous. I think it's wonderful that there is that much interest and much demand. So obviously this is directly connected to your livelihood. The land that your beef are grazing on. And right now there's some threats from multiple directions. Talk to us about that.
Yes, there are. We were affected about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. We received a letter from an energy company that they were claiming eminent domain over our land. Actually, they were going to go right through the middle of our property, telling us we had no rights. They could do whatever they wanted to bring a transmission line across our land, across our property. And they never contacted us. We talked to some neighbors. The same thing happened to them. And it was going to affect us. It was a major it is still a major problem that we're dealing with.
Wow. Now, is this down around the Tuttle area?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
This is south of Tuttle. Actually, what it is, they have wind turbines out by Minko and the surrounding areas where they have just well, you can't look without seeing the big windmills everywhere.
Yeah.
And it is actually it's a transmission company. NextEra is the name of the company, who's based out of Florida, and they're trying to do a transmission line from the Minko area to Norman. And basically what they did is they just saw a map and drew a line and said, we're going that direction. I mean, they were going straight through people's houses, but dividing the land, not asking you anything about
Wow.
it, just taking it.
And so the first
And
contact you received from Nextera was a demand letter? I mean, there was no request. Are you interested in this? It was simply a notification that we're running the line through your land. Is that correct?
that is correct. Yes.
Wow. And the claim
Yes.
was eminent domain.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And you said that the neighbors had received similar letters.
Yes. Yes. Multiple neighbors that we had talked to. And then as we talked to more, then yes, they had received the same letters, the same thing. And we had found out that they had been on our property without permission,
Okay. Okay.
climbing over fences, etc.
Wow. Wow. So Nextera representatives from their company, they come out and they just hop a fence and start exploring. You know, that's called trespassing. So
Yes.
is there any kind
Yes,
of
it is.
legal pushback to that? I mean, have you guys attempted to notify authorities? What's been your response?
We had to get an attorney, and we have been basically paying an attorney for the last 18 plus months. We have been through mediation with them. And this is not only us, this is people up and down the line. I'm talking multiple miles of people. And at first we were told that we needed to keep it quiet, because if we went public or we went social media or anything like that, that would be used against us if it went to court, etc. And so we did. And there's been so much. I just want to. They've lied. They've not. They've not stuck to their word. They are not men of their word, men and women of their word. Uh, and a few weeks ago, I had my fill, and so I did make a post on social media because I will say that we went through mediation a few months ago, and we came to an agreement. Um, us and a few others who actually went to mediation with them, we did come to an agreement, and they have already been breaking their agreement with us. What we agreed to, not in court, but through mediation, they have broken those guidelines. And we've already had to send more letters to their attorneys, spend more money to get them to abide by what we legally agreed to.
Now, do you think that this is a tactic to break people financially? I mean,
Absolutely.
because your response has to go through your attorney, which is costing you money. I'm thinking about people out there that may not have the funds to hire an attorney. So then they just get railroaded.
Yes, that's what they try to do because, I mean, ultimately, we can't fight them. We can't fight. Normal people, normal just farmers and ranchers and other people don't have the money. We don't have the money to continue to fight them in court. And that's what they're hoping. They're hoping that they'll just squeeze the lifeblood out of you till you just give up. And we're going to fight them with all we can. Our neighbors are fighting them with all we can, um, to try to keep them honest, just to abide by what we agreed to. And they will not abide to what we have agreed to. We have contacted legislators. all three, the two House of Representatives in our district and the senator, and they have excuses when one of them has never replied to us. The others have excuses. They say, well, they're lobbyists. She's so sweet. She said their company would never do that. And that is a quote, I might add. And I was like, really? Well, let me tell you the truth. My husband, we're like, that's not, this is what's happening. And yeah,
What's an example? I mean, what kind of agreement did you guys come to through mediation?
through mediation, they were given, we came to a settlement through remediation, and they were given an easement. They were supposed to stay within their easement when they're on our property. They've gotten off of their easement. They're not using the surveyor stakes that were put out there where their easement is. They're like, well, we're just going to go by what's on our phone. Their phone is not the surveyor stakes. So we told them no. Now they need some guy wires for the towers. They didn't account for that, and that'll be outside of their easement. And we said, nope, you can't do that because we didn't agree to those. They forgot that. They have driven where they shouldn't drive on our property. They have cut locks. They have cut our gate locks and entered. Whenever there's two locks on there, theirs and ours, they just cut the gates and cut the locks and go on. Like the other day, last week, someone had been down there and accidentally locked them out because when you put two locks together, if you don't know how to lock it back, well, they had accidentally locked them out. Well, we didn't know they were, so their foreman calls my husband and told him that they were locked out. We live 1.5 miles from the property, and my husband was at home. He said, I'll run over there and unlock the gate. And the man said, no, we don't need it today. We'll just do it we'll do it tomorrow. And Terry said, are you sure? I will go over there. No, we don't need it. Don't go over there today. So we went over there later that afternoon to check cows, and they had cut the chain and went in anyway. And they admitted to doing that. So it's just little things like that they have done.
So have they started construction of a windmill on your property?
They're not on our property yet. They have to do some clearing of the land, and they are about 1 mile from our property at two neighbors over, and they have the equipment out there. They're clearing trees at a creek right now, and the trees around our place they can't bother our ponds. They have to leave all of our water where it is. We have a watershed on our property, and they were going to come straight over the top of that, but they're taking out all of the habitat, for the animal, for the wildlife, for our quail, for various birds and deer and things like that behind our ponds. And there's signs up that says that they have put up themselves that say that it has to be hand cleared. Well, their hand clearing is bringing in a machine and reaching over with a machine to clear out the trees. So it's really not hand clearing. This machine has a big boom on it that they go out and just tear these trees down with. So, another interesting fact is they weren't supposed to come on our property until they told us, because we needed to spray for invasive weeds and things. Our guy was there spraying last week, and NextEra shows up. My husband called and said, you guys can't be here this week because he's spraying. He's going to be spraying the next 2 to 3 days. And Jake, they said, well, it's okay. We can just work while he's spraying. It won't matter. Okay, he is spraying poisonous chemicals, and they were willing to have their employees be sprayed by these chemicals.
Wow.
And my husband said, absolutely not. I will not be responsible for your employees being sprayed by chemicals.
Yeah.
And how could you submit them to that and subject them to that?
Yeah, very concerning. Was that NextEra headquarters that gave that authorization for their
It
employees, or
was
the?
it was one of their foremen who
Okay.
said it would be okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah, very concerning as well. So have you guys reached an agreement with them to have a windmill installed on your property, or are you still fighting that?
Okay, they're not installing windmills on our property. This is the
Oh, the
transmission line.
transmission line, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So they'll be running the
And
line
they'll
through
be
your property.
running a line straight across the middle of our property. They'll have two poles on us, which is interesting. I don't know how they can have just two poles on us and still keep their distance, that the lines won't be too close to the ground
Uh-huh.
as we drive under them.
And these will be overhead transmission lines, not underground.
Right.
Okay.
Overhead transmission lines. Yes. And that, there's going to be a hum, there's going to be a noise to them. Uh, we're out in the country, but there's a little small neighborhood that's been, these houses have been there for 40 plus years. And it's running right beside these people's
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah. So did the fight for you initially start to stop this transmission line altogether, and then
Yes.
did it shift to we're going to try to manage this as best as possible? I mean, at what
Yes.
point did that shift?
It shifted about, I would say we were 8 months in to the fight, whenever it was like, okay, they're going to do it. We don't have a choice. Now we have to just contain them as much as possible.
Okay.
And and that's what we did. Try to just contain it and put it off as long as we could.
Now, what did your communication look like? Was it directly with NextEra, your legal counsel with NextEra, or did you go through any state agency at all?
No, we went straight through legal counsel. State agencies won't help us.
Uh-huh. Has there been any attempt by you or other people
Now,
to
now
contact? Oh, go ahead.
I will say, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Because of our government watershed that we have, the conservation district did their best to stop it. And they finally got them to move the lines where they wouldn't, and where their equipment, et cetera, wouldn't ruin the runoff of our watershed that protects flooding, et cetera. Um, they did fight them on that, and the conservation district did help us there somewhat.
Okay. Has there been any attempt to contact the Attorney General?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So came to this point of accepting the fact that they're going to install it, claiming eminent
Hmm.
domain. I'm still curious about what state agency gave that authorization for eminent domain. I mean, I don't think that a major company can simply come in and claim that for themselves. It looks like,
Exactly.
yeah,
No, they can't, and that's the direction we were going from. But if they're okay, if the company is funded or for the greater good, okay, of the government, whatever, at the federal, I don't know if it's federal, state level, whatever. It's kind of similar to the turnpike situation,
yeah,
um, that they can come in and do this. And honestly, because a transmission line doesn't have the authority to do it, a transmission company doesn't. But if they are like a energy producer, then they have the authority to do it. There's something, I don't know exactly how that works. And so we honestly don't think that this transmission company legally could do it, but having the money to fight them on those grounds it wouldn't work.
right.
And I think they've worked it out where they're under the umbrella of their producing company, that they can There's a loophole
Yeah.
where they were able to do it, and they didn't go ahead and have an eminent domain. We did get to, go through mediation, and they did settle with all the people across the way.
Okay.
But I do know that some people that are west of us have already filed another suit against them since they've started on their property.
Well, it's a growing concern across Oklahoma with these large wind turbines and then the transmission lines as a result. So much question around the efficiency. Are they are subsidized, and without that subsidy, they would not be able to stay in business because they're not producing enough energy to sustain themselves. And so that alone
Exactly.
is such a question around this about why such a big push to install more turbines when it's not even sustaining itself. And then the resulting destruction in the wake of the installation and the fact that these big turbines, they don't break down, so they have these big boneyards for the props, the propellers, and the amount of diesel and oil and petroleum products that are needed to produce these things. I mean, there's so many question marks around this, and it looks like it's just a moneymaker for the industry itself and not actually beneficial to the landowners, or the population in general.
Oh, that's exactly right. If the government wasn't subsidizing this, it would not last. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But big money is where it's at in the big corporations, and why the legislators, why our representatives, our senators at the state and federal level will not do something about it is beyond me. I I do not understand.
Well, it definitely presents
You know,
more questions than answers. And are you concerned that this will impact your cattle?
it could. It could. Um, what's going to happen with our property? What are they actually going to do? Are they going to, we've told them they have to shut the gate every time they come in it, lock the gate behind you. We've all of that. Cattle can get out. I know there are cases in Kansas where cattle have been electrocuted underneath these lines. It just depends on how much they're generating at the time. And, if the conditions are just right and you're underneath it, who knows what could happen.
Right.
You just
And
never
the
know.
property value, like you mentioned, what does it do to that if you tried to sell? I know
Oh,
that.
it would plummet.
Oh, yeah.
Our property would plummet because it divides our property. And our two boys have both stated that, oh, we would like to have a house right here. They have always said where they'd like to have their house one day. And now they won't have it there because there's going to be a transmission line basically, just right near it
Yeah.
where they would have to drive under it, hear the hum, everything else all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it does something to, and people right next to us, this is what they did to them. They are in the process of building a house, and they had two structures built already. They had spent a lot of money, just preparing, getting everything ready, getting their entrance, their drive, and their construction on their house had to come to a halt because of where the transmission line was going.
Wow.
They could not enter their property, and it didn't matter. Didn't matter.
Yeah. Central to this discussion is property rights. And, this is something that our founders, one of the primary drivers of the Constitution is understanding that God gives us these inalienable rights. Among them include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which our founders interpreted as the right to own property. That directly connected to our pursuit of happiness is our ability to own property. And it seems like it is a direct violation of our constitutionally protected God-given rights to own property and to have right over that property. And when you have large organizations backed by the government that infringe on those rights, what is the recourse?
Yes,
And
there is none.
yeah, and it's always easy to ignore this when it's someone else, down the road. Whether we're talking about a turnpike going through someone's home or a transmission line being installed overhead, it's not that big a deal until it's your property. But
Exactly.
right here, we're hearing firsthand from someone who is directly impacted by this, and you're not alone. I mean, I'm seeing Facebook pages pop up representing different regions of the state. Over in Lincoln County, there's a large coalition of people that are saying we refuse to allow the windmill corporations to just railroad us. And so there's a growing pushback in the state because of these concerns. So, I'm curious to hear what district attorneys, what the attorney general here in the state of Oklahoma has to say about this, what the Department of Commerce and the Department of Energy has to say. Because the question I ask is, are we going to prioritize individuals and their property rights, or are we going to prioritize big corporations who without government subsidies wouldn't even exist? So very concerning for me. Kim, I really appreciate your time and your willingness to come on and share the details of your situation. And we'll continue to pray for you and those impacted by this, because it's not a small deal.
No, it's a big deal, and also these corporations, they like to throw their money at supporting schools or different organizations. They like to have their signs up there, giving the general public the idea that, oh, look, they gave X amount of dollars to the school because they have their sign up there and stuff, and it's like they try to make it look good, but by throwing $2,500, $5,000, whatever at the school to put their name on a sign. But when in reality, they're throwing that at your sports program or whatever it is, but they're destroying your land in the process.
Right. Well, there's so many other issues we could dive into. We'll probably leave it at this. I mean, obviously, humanure, which I believe is a concern for you and for others in the state. We'll have to reserve that for another show. But
Absolutely.
right now, it is concerning. Is there any place people can go to find out more about this?
I really wish there were. There is a Facebook page that I was just made aware of last week. You might remember the name of it that we talked about.
Yeah, it was like Farm and Ranchers for Oklahoma, or
Yes, something similar to that. I've had a busy week with a wedding, so I can't even.
I think it's Save Oklahoma Farms and Ranches. I just looked that up.
Yes, that's, and so I'm starting to get more information about that. But basically, people are now starting to become aware. Once I made my Facebook post, I had phone calls from so many people who are like, I hadn't talked to in a while, or they called and was like, I saw your post and I want you to know you're not alone. They're doing the same thing to us.
Yeah.
And so we have to start, there has to be awareness. And I think awareness is just now starting to come out, and people are starting to get brave enough to stand up to these corporations instead of saying, well, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's about standing up in numbers and
Yes.
pushing back, but it's also about electing the right people who will also represent you. Like you said, you went to your representatives, your senators, and you received no help. And those are the people that are supposed to be representing us, not the special interests, not the big companies and
corporations. That's exactly right. And we got zero help.
That's concerning.
And these people, I see them. We're friends, been friends with one for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's very disheartening.
Yeah, it is. And of course, we have the primaries coming up June 18th. That's why I'm covering a lot of candidates to let people know who's running and what they're standing on. And man, these elections are very, very critical for reasons like this. It is directly impacting our livelihood, our land. If we lose our land, what else do you have? I mean, it's our food, it's our water, and it's our children's inheritance. So, yes, very critical. These elections are more than about just a vote. It's about our future. And so, man, I'm covering as many candidates as possible to help get the info out there. But that's why situations like this highlight why it's so important.
Exactly. Thank you, Jake. I appreciate you and what you're doing and to raise awareness.
Yes, for sure. Well, hey, we'll have to post a link or something to let people know where to get good Kennedy beef.
Sure.
I love it. You guys, I love local beef producers. We were talking even before the recording that my wife and I are growing our little herd to not only supply our family with beef, but also to supply other families with beef. And so the movement is on there. But hey, that only works if you have land to do it on. So we must protect our land. Kim, I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you.
All right, you bet.
All right.
Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in for another episode of the Jake for the State podcast, another episode covering critical issues facing us here in the state of Oklahoma and really other states around the nation. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe, spread the word, and help us get the podcast out there. But until next time, you guys have an amazing day, and catch you on the next episode.